A Cold War Armor Clash Narrative. Date and time, March 18, 1985, 7:15 a.m. Setting, Grafenwohr Training Area, West Germany. Frost clings to the pine forest floor. Diesel engines hum and rumble across the misty clearing. NATO and Warsaw Pact maneuvers are simulated, yet tension feels real. Captain Robert Bob Whitman, the 32-year-old M1 Abrams platoon leader, scanned the horizon through his thermal optics. His Abrams tanks glisten black in the weak morning light, the reactive armor plates catching hints of sun. Next to him, Sergeant James Jimmy Caldwell smirked, tapping the barrel of his 120mm smoothbore cannon. "Captain, my sights see further than a crow at noon," he joked, though his eyes were sharp and focused. Whitman's jaw tightened. "Eyes open, Jimmy. We're not here to lose a single chassis today." Across the clearing, the low silhouettes of T-72 tanks moved with quiet menace. Lieutenant Ivan Petrov, 29, commanded the lead T-72. His crew, the youngest being Private Alexei Smirnov, moved efficiently in silence. Frost sparkled on the tank's angular armor as Petrov issued orders. "Focus, comrades. Target the lead Abrams first. The 125mm can punch through if we get the angle right." Smirnov swallowed, glancing at the Abrams lineup. "Sir, their optics are really that superior?" Petrov's eyes hardened. "Focus on the training. Alexei, worry about optics later." By 8:03, the first contact began. Abrams tanks rolled forward, cutting through mud and frost. The M1's fire control system, advanced for 1985, integrated ballistic computers, automatic stabilization, and thermal sights. Across the field, the T-72 relied heavily on crew skill, optical rangefinders, and instinct honed through Red Army drills. Whitman's thermal display locked onto a moving T-72 at 1,200 meters. Target acquired. Wind velocity 8 meters per second. Range confirmed. "Fire when ready," he said, his voice steady. Caldwell calculated the shot while Whitman's finger hovered over the trigger. "They're moving fast," Caldwell noted. Whitman nodded. "Adjust lead. Compensate for slope. They won't stay exposed for long." A flash erupted from the Abrams barrel, and the APFSDS round sped across the clearing. The T-72 shook violently but did not topple. Its composite armor, designed to withstand NATO fire, absorbed much of the kinetic energy. Petrov's voice cut through the chaos. "Hold steady. Return fire at 1,100 meters. Aim for the frontal hull, not the reactive panels." The T-72 fired its 125mm smoothbore, a shell streaking across the mist toward the Abrams. Whitman felt the vibrations ripple through his tank. Caldwell squinted through the thermal scope. "Incoming!" Whitman barked. The round hit the reactive armor, detonating harmlessly on the surface. The M1 systems adjusted instantly. Fire control tracked the T-72's new position, calculating elevation, wind, and speed in milliseconds. From the observation post, General Klaus Reinhardt observed silently, radio murmurs crackling at his side. His gaze swept over the battlefield, noting the difference in doctrine. The Americans relied on precision fire and technological superiority, while the Soviets depended on training, speed, and mass. He scribbled a note. M1 systems outperform optics in first contact, but crew tactics still decisive. Colonel Sergei Volkov mirrored the calculation for his side. "Do not underestimate their stabilization and computer-assisted fire," he warned, though pride in the T-72's resilience remained. As the engagement continued, Whitman and Petrov's crews danced an intricate, deadly ballet. Each tank fired, maneuvered, and recalculated. Whitman muttered calculations to himself. Range. 1,050, adjust for lateral movement, stabilizer locked. Caldwell snapped off another round. Petrov barked instructions, his crew following flawlessly. Elevate gun 2 degrees, lead by 3 meters, fire. The T-72 round struck the Abrams side, leaving a dent but no penetration. The battle stretched into hours, the morning mist giving way to sunlight. Abrams and T-72 tanks circled, fired, and retreated, testing each other's limits. Whitman marveled at the T-72's survivability. Petrov respected the M1's fire control, noting how quickly it adapted to changes in movement and terrain. Both sides began improvising tactics on the fly. "They predict our moves too fast," muttered Smirnov. Petrov nodded grimly. "Then we change the moves faster than they calculate." By midday, the simulated engagement ended. Both sides retreated to regroup. Tanks steaming in the spring sun. Data from sensors and fire logs would later inform NATO and Warsaw Pact analysts alike. The reality of armored warfare in the Cold War was clear. Technology could dominate, but discipline, timing, and crew cohesion remained decisive. Whitman, wiping condensation from his optics, spoke quietly to Caldwell. "This isn't just about firepower. It's about nerves, instincts, and being ready for anything." Caldwell nodded. "And a little luck." Petrov surveyed his T-72s, chest rising with pride. "Today we learn the Abrams fire control is lethal. Tomorrow we adapt." Across the forest, observers from both sides recorded every moment, aware that what happened here could one day translate to real battlefields, where thousands of tanks, thousands of lives, and decades of geopolitical tension hung in the balance. Date and time, March 18, 1985, 12:45 p.m. Setting, Grafenwohr Training Area, West Germany. The morning mist is lifted, revealing muddy trails and flattened pine needles. Sunlight reflects off metal plates, making each tank a silhouette of steel and shadow. The M1 Abrams platoon had repositioned into a hilly sector of the training area, using terrain to their advantage. Whitman surveyed the undulating ground, noting depressions and rises that could conceal a T-72 until the last possible moment. Caldwell, thermal sweep. "We're not going blind here," he ordered. The Abrams fire control system hummed softly, stabilizers whirring as sensors scanned for movement. Across the field, Petrov's T-72s crouched among the low ridges. "Alexei, check the elevation on the front gun. We'll use the crest to bait them," he instructed. The younger soldier obeyed, hands moving with trained precision. "Sir, they can see us from that far?" he asked, nodding toward the Abrams positions. Petrov's eyes narrowed. "They can see everything, but they cannot predict where we will fire first." At 12:50, the first T-72 fired, a 125mm APFSDS round streaking toward a distant Abrams. Whitman felt a familiar tremor through the hull, but knew the reactive armor would absorb the impact. He exhaled, scanning the horizon. "Adjust windage by 2 degrees. Compensate for lateral drift. Fire on my mark." Caldwell's hand twitched over the trigger. Whitman gave the signal, and another round hurtled from the M1, striking the T-72's frontal plate. Sparks flew, and the T-72 rocked back, but the round did not penetrate completely. Petrov's eyes narrowed. "They see our moves too. Quickly, shift right flank. Prepare for follow-up." The T-72s repositioned, leaving skid marks in the mud. Whitman's Abrams tracked them instantly, the fire control system recalculating trajectory in milliseconds. "Their maneuver is faster than predicted," he muttered. "Keep calm. Compensate for angular velocity." Led them slightly. As the afternoon sun climbed, the two armored forces engaged in a deadly choreography. Each M1 round was calculated, accounting for wind, slope, and barrel wear. Each T-72 round relied on crew instinct, a subtle anticipation of enemy movement. The contrast of Cold War doctrines was clear: American technology versus Soviet improvisation. Reinhardt observed from a nearby command post, making notes. "They underestimate the T-72's agility," he murmured into his radio. "But their fire control accuracy is unmatched. If this were a real engagement, NATO would likely neutralize the first wave quickly." Volkov, positioned on the Soviet side, scribbled furiously. "The Abrams is faster and its guns are more accurate, but T-72 crews compensate with tactics. Their armor may survive multiple hits. Training is their only equalizer." By 2:15 p.m., Whitman noticed a pattern. T-72 crews were favoring terrain concealment, firing from unexpected angles. He adjusted tactics, ordering a flanking maneuver. "Left column, advance to ridge 4, keep thermal scan active. We need visual on their right flank. Caldwell grinned. Captain, it's like a chess game, except our pieces shoot back. Whitman allowed a small smile, but kept focus. Petrov anticipated the move. We will split their attention. Lead with the left flank. Hold the right in reserve. Smirnov hesitated. But if they hit us... Petrov's voice was firm. Then we survive, and they see only ghosts. The next exchange was rapid. Abrams rounds found weak spots along the T-72 sides, while T-72 rounds bounced off the reactive panels, occasionally leaving marks but rarely breaching the hull. The sun cast long shadows across the battlefield, highlighting the strategic importance of terrain. Each tank commander was calculating angles, adjusting fire, and predicting the other's next move. At 3 p.m., a near miss shook Whitman's Abrams. Caldwell wiped sweat from his brow. That was close. Their shot almost clipped our loader's hatch. Whitman studied the T-72 formation, realizing the Soviets had learned from every previous exchange. They're adapting fast. This isn't just a game. Every tank, every crew, they're learning in real time. Meanwhile, Petrov's heart raced. Alexei, keep calm. Whitman's fire control is lethal, but they cannot anticipate everything. Find their rhythm. Exploit it. Smirnov's hands trembled slightly, but he followed orders, adjusting aim and elevation with precision. The T-72 fired again, a round whistling across the battlefield and skimming the side of an Abrams. Sparks erupted, and Caldwell muttered, "They're testing us." Whitman nodded, "And we're learning faster." By late afternoon, both sides had gathered data, and the pace slowed. Crews removed goggles, wiped condensation from optics, and reviewed logs. For Whitman and Caldwell, the M1 systems had proved deadly accurate. But the T-72's resilience and tactical ingenuity had prevented catastrophic losses. Petrov and Smirnov, while relieved, recognized the destructive potential of Western fire control. Both commanders silently understood that technology and training must evolve together. Reinhardt observed quietly, noting the key lessons. Precision fire dominates in first contact. Survival depends on unpredictable maneuvers. Volkov, observing through binoculars, wrote in his log, "Crew discipline can offset technological superiority, only temporarily. We must adapt or fall behind." The day ended with the sound of engines cooling, smoke dissipating, and soldiers exchanging brief nods across the battlefield. Both sides had pushed their machines and crews to the limits, learning from every shell fired, every maneuver executed. The Cold War was not just a war of politics. It was a war of steel, technology, and human nerve. Whitman, looking at the distant horizon, reflected aloud. If this were real, thousands of tanks would be moving like this, and only one mistake could cost lives. Caldwell nodded solemnly. Petrov, on the other side, silently considered the same. Survival depended not just on firepower, but on instinct, adaptability, and the cold calculation of a soldier's mind under fire. Date and time, March 18, 1985, 5:30 p.m. Setting, Grafenwohr Training Area, West Germany. The sun is low, casting long shadows over mud-slick trails and battered tank tracks. Smoke lingers from earlier rounds, and a faint smell of spent propellant hangs in the air. The Abrams and T-72 platoons had maneuvered for hours, testing the limits of each system and crew. Whitman scanned the ridge line through his thermal sight, noting the shadows of T-72s barely visible through the trees. "Caldwell, lock on. Let's see what they've learned today," he said, voice tense but controlled. Across the field, Petrov adjusted his crew positions. "Alexei, elevation 2 degrees. Keep your lead. Whitman's fire control is fast. Anticipate, don't react." The younger soldier nodded, hands steady on the loader controls, eyes flicking from display to display. Petrov's mind raced, calculating distance, armor thickness, and trajectory angles, all under the pressure of a simulated but deadly feeling engagement. At 5:40 p.m., the first volley began. Abrams' round streaked toward the T-72s with pinpoint accuracy. One round struck a frontal plate, denting but not penetrating completely. Sparks flew, and Petrov barked, "Shift left. Keep moving. Don't let them anticipate our position." The T-72s moved across the terrain, taking advantage of slight depressions and tree cover. Whitman's Abrams tracked relentlessly. "They're adapting. Don't give them a second to breathe," he murmured. Caldwell adjusted elevation and lead, firing again. A round grazed the side armor of one T-72, leaving a shallow dent. Petrov gritted his teeth, realizing that the Abrams fire control allowed near-instant corrections, making repeated hits increasingly likely. Change rhythm. Feint to right. Fire to left. Move before they calculate. Smoke and dust filled the air as rounds whistled overhead. Both crews were tense, muscles taut, adrenaline high. For Whitman, this was a test of technology and nerve. For Petrov, a test of instinct and discipline. Every second counted. Every hesitation could be fatal. At 6:10 p.m., a near hit on the lead Abrams rattled a hatch. Caldwell cursed under his breath. Whitman studied the T-72 formation. "They're probing us," testing armor and reactions. Time to force the engagement. He ordered a slow advance along a diagonal ridge, exposing some armor but gaining a better line of fire. The Abrams systems recalculated instantly, stabilizing barrels and adjusting for slope and wind. Petrov noticed a shift. "They're exposed in the front. Prepare to fire. Timing is everything." The T-72s unleashed a volley, one round impacting an Abrams side. Sparks flew, and a dent appeared, but the reactive armor absorbed most of the kinetic energy. Petrov allowed himself a brief nod of satisfaction. Good shot, but not enough to stop them. By 6:30 p.m., both sides had exhausted many simulated rounds. Observers from NATO and Warsaw Pact posts made notes, radio chatter crackling as analysts calculated hit probabilities, response times, and crew efficiency. Reinhardt muttered, "The Abrams fire control system dominates first strikes, but the T-72 crew's tactical ingenuity compensates for technological disparity." Volkov noted, "Even with superior optics, the Abrams cannot predict every maneuver. Training, instinct, and terrain manipulation remain crucial." As the sun dipped below the tree line, casting golden-orange light across the battlefield, Whitman and Petrov made final calculations. Whitman's voice was quiet but resolute. "Caldwell, last sweep. Let's see who learned more today." Caldwell adjusted the targeting computer, scanning for weak points. Simultaneously, Petrov instructed his crew, "Alexei, focus. One precise shot. Aim for their turret side. That's all we need." The final exchanges were tense, almost silent except for the deep hum and shock waves of cannon fire. Each round seemed to hang in the air, time slowing for those inside the tanks. The Abrams round struck a T-72 side panel, leaving a mark but failing to penetrate fully. Petrov's return shot grazed the Abrams reactive armor. Both crews recognized a mutual truth. Neither system could claim absolute dominance, yet each had demonstrated formidable capabilities. By 7 p.m., engines idled, smoke dissipated, and both sides regrouped. Whitman spoke to Caldwell, exhaustion in his voice. Precision matters. Technology matters. But nerves, instinct, and crew coordination, they make the difference between survival and destruction. Caldwell nodded silently, still wiping sweat from his brow. Petrov gathered his T-72 crew. "Today we survived because of our discipline, our training, and our understanding of the enemy. Tomorrow we will adapt again. Technology is powerful, but so is human will." Smirnov, eyes wide but proud, nodded. "Sir, we can beat them if we think faster than they calculate." Petrov allowed a small, rare smile. "Exactly. That is the lesson of today." From the observation posts, both Reinhardt and Volkov recorded detailed reports. Analysts would later study engine vibrations, armor performance, trajectory adjustments, and crew decisions. The exercise had shown the stark reality of Cold War armored warfare. The M1 Abrams fire control system gave NATO crews lethal first strike capability, yet the T-72's combination of training, maneuverability, and tactical improvisation could mitigate the technological advantage, at least temporarily. As darkness fell, the forest returned to stillness. Tracks in mud and flattened pine needles bore witness to the day's struggle. Both sides had tested machines' tactics and nerves to the limit. For Whitman, Caldwell, Petrov, and Smirnov. The battlefield had been a classroom where technology met instinct and steel met strategy. The echoes of this encounter would resonate beyond Grafenwohr. NATO and Warsaw Pact planners would incorporate lessons from these exercises into doctrine. Crews would remember the tension, the smell of spent propellant, the hum of engines, and the knowledge that in a real conflict, one miscalculation could mean life or death. The Cold War was not fought only in politics or propaganda. It was fought in the mind of tank commanders, in the meticulous calculations of fire control systems, and in the disciplined, instinctive reactions of crews facing steel and fire. On that March day in 1985, Abrams met T-72, and both proved their mettle, not just as machines of war, but as instruments of human skill, resilience, and willpower.